not be able to tell if you're watching us on video for this edition of the Integrate Intelligently podcast, but we are actually all sitting together. John Thomas, our marketing manager here at CADtalk, Scott Brickler, our CEO, Jeff Brickler, our COO. We are all sitting across from each other here in downtown Chicago at the Renaissance Hotel for the SaaS Academy Marketing Intensive. It's the first time we've been able to do one of these podcasts fully in person, so pretty exciting to be able to be all together here. Guys, thanks for joining here today for the Integrate Intelligently podcast here at SaaS Academy. And this is the marketing intensive portion, but you guys have been here for a little while for the SaaS Academy Boardroom event throughout this week. What all have you guys been up to here in Chicago?
We actually came in like last Wednesday. So today we're recording on a Monday, and we've been here since Wednesday. So we were here for the Boardroom event, which is like once you get to a certain revenue level in SaaS Academy, you're invited to the Boardroom, which we were able to join this year. And it's a smaller group of founders. It's more around the mindset of the founders and the leaders of the company and how to operate. So the sessions are more or less about tactics and more about strategy and mindset. And then we spent the weekend, had a good time, and then we start back again. So I think I've actually been gone since last Sunday. So this is my 8th day in a row being traveling. And it's just been an amazing, it feels like a month has gone by, the amount of activities have been packed into the last 7 days, and having an amazing time. Jeff?
Yeah, same. I last week on Wednesday, I drove up to Cincinnati, Chicago, on a 5-hour drive to the SaaS Academy Boardroom, and Wednesday evening. Then we had those events Thursday and Friday, all-day events going into the evening. And then, of course, we spent the weekend here with some friends, coaches, vendors, friends here, taking some activities in Chicago, a blues game, a play, some meals. And so really just enjoying Chicago for the weekend until today. We're starting last night we had the welcome reception at the SaaS Academy Intensive, and then today kicking off this morning with the marketing intensive. So I'm excited here with John, our marketing manager, and Scott, our CEO, to see what's new in terms of marketing for SaaS academies and then expand our efforts.
I am a little bit jealous about the Bulls game because I specifically checked the schedule when I was coming into town to see if there'd be anything tonight. Bulls are on the road, Blackhawks are on the road, so I'm out of luck there. Maybe I'll have to go see Wrigley Field just to at least, say I did something sports related while I'm here. That's the thing. Well, anyway, before we get into the main part of the podcast, a little bit more about SaaS Academy, I knew you guys were having an interesting week when I got a video from Jeff on Thursday evening, I think, of him washing his hands with fire. So before we continue on, I have to hear more about that. And then I arrived last night, and all I hear is that Scott has been breathing fire. So I have to hear more about this, and we'll lay the clips over here, but I have to hear more about what in the world was going on with this fire hand washing and fire breathing from the two of you.
So every the SaaS Academy Boardroom events, they have one of the activities in the afternoons one afternoon is an unknown. It's sort of a secret activity. So I'd heard in years past that they had done rappelling over a tall building. So down a tall building, you would rappel. And so that's the sort of thing they would have you do, so they could get out of your comfort zone, to push your limits. And so they told us that we were going to go on this field trip, as it were, and it was an unknown activity. So they put us on a bus and bussed us outside of, still within the city, but outside of the dense populated main floor, really a warehouse, kind of an open, maybe more like a garage, a large open space where nothing's there. Looked a bit like a prison with guarded like a barbed wire fence. So we entered the door, and then as soon as we enter these two women are kind of vaudeville, dressed somewhat vaudeville, and then breathing fire, right? So spitting fire out of their mouths, putting fire into their mouths, really playing with pyrotechnics in that regard. And so they then let us know that we were going to go on an adventure for learning how to eat fire, breathe fire, and that we were going to do that. And that was going to be the activity for the afternoon. So for those next several hours, we spent time learning how to to eat fires, meaning take a fire stick and put it into your mouth, to light torches, fire torches using your hands, and then of course if you're so brave, to be able to breathe spit fire. So being able to take one of these, you've seen them on movies and things where you hold this sort of torch and then you spit something out, or you aspirate something and a huge fireball comes out. So those were the activities. One of which, John, you saw me, which was you're taking this kind of fire in your hands and then you're rubbing it around and then your hands look like you're on fire. So that was also one of the activities. That's the one I sent John, showing me playing with that fire in my hands.
It's just just an amazing time. I mean, really, it's pretty cool to like go and you see something like that, and you never in your life did you think you would have do something, you would do that. I mean, it's just not something that's readily available to you. And then you go there and you get in and you get the experience and you realize that you can pick it up. You can actually learn this within a few hours and perform it. And it just kind of breaks the barriers in your brain about how you would do that. What was really interesting, this is already a very adventuresome group when you talk about entrepreneurs and leaders of companies and stuff. So so there's, probably 30 or 40 of us there. And then I think the performer was like, if anybody's really interested in doing something dangerous, and there was like 12 of us who put our hands up before she even finished the sentence. And you could tell, I was like, these are my people, raising their hands. And there's about 12 of us who actually decided to breathe fire, which is that was a really cool experience. Supposedly that's a lot more dangerous and a lot easier to to get injured, but nobody got injured, and we had a great time doing that. But it was just it makes for some amazing pictures. So we'll definitely get those played in there, and got a few slow-mo ones that are a lot of fun. But yeah, it just opens your mind up to what you can do, even just in a short period of time, and that that it really doesn't. Your brain says everything like don't do this, but it really isn't that dangerous at all comparatively to a lot of things that we think about. A lot less dangerous than putting millions of dollars on the line and starting a company. So, but it was still a ton of fun, an absolute ton of fun.
So we've talked a lot about SaaS Academy, SaaS standing for Software as a Service. For those who are maybe finding us for the first time here on this podcast, we do offer software as a service, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we do here in just a little bit. But I wanted to first talk about and hear from you, Scott, how you got plugged into SaaS Academy. What is it? How did we end up here in Chicago today for this event?
Oh, absolutely. So the way we kind of came, like me and Jeff are always, one of our values here at CADtalk, if you listen to the earlier episodes, is relentless reinvention. And it's about, which is essentially our value around continuous improvement. So we're always seeking knowledge, trying to figure out a better way. How do we make improvements? So we're listening to podcasts and just trying to learn pretty much continuously. And anything about like time management or doing things like that are interesting to me. So there was actually a podcast I used to listen to for, I think it was from a guy who Rob Walling, who created Microconf, which is for like small software founders. And he was actually interviewing Dan Martell for his book, Buy Back Your Time, which was very intriguing. So I listened to that podcast. I remember where I was taking my daughter to like sports nutrition or something like that. And I had an hour to kill. And I listened to that podcast with him. And I said, this guy's interesting. Let me read his book. Read his book and just and usually I listen to a lot of books, but it's the first time I actually listened to one like 3 or 4 times. And I was super impressed with it. And I was like, then I heard that he started the SaaS Academy, and I was like, oh wow, let me look into this, talk to them, and realized it was B2B, had to be a certain revenue level. Because other things I'd been to wasn't, they weren't quite a good fit. It was good, but it wasn't as good of a fit as that. And then I was like, this sounds like it could be more up our, up kind of closer to companies than us. So went to the first event in June of 2023 in Boston. I just fell in love with the community. It's just an amazing community of people, and just so much fun, and just really started getting to know everybody. And I've always kind of been, kind of a shy guy. I'm a developer, engineer, and I feel like this community really opened me up and made me, much more social. And just, if you're an entrepreneur, it tends to be kind of tricky to have conversations with normal people, I guess. A lot of people are back home, people work at Procter & Gamble or corporate jobs and stuff, and being an entrepreneur is kind of different. And I was in an entrepreneurs organization, which was amazing for that as well. But actually to be able to an organization like this, where exactly the same industry. People are suffering from exactly the same problems, or not suffering, but they're playing the same challenge. They're playing the same game that we're playing. I like to be positive about it, and then and be able to help each other. It's just been an amazing amount of fun. It's been awesome.
So we get a lot of questions here when people see our name CADtalk and ask, what do you do? That's a pretty common question when you're going around. We had a networking event last night and you're asking people, what do you do? And there are a lot of services that are relatively easy to explain. I feel like ours is maybe a little more niche, a little more difficult to explain when people ask, what do we do? We've spent podcasts talking about it. But if you're just joining us for the first time, you guys, I open it up to either of you to give if someone came up to you last night and said, what do you do? What did you found? How would you answer them?
That's actually something they teach you here. Is the first thing you have to do, which I think it's like the elevator pitch, or your it's actually, you have to develop that as part of this program. And it's like, and the one I always use is that, Scott Brickler, CADtalk, and we help manufacturing companies get their engineering and manufacturing software talking. That's the line that I use. And obviously that asks for, people usually ask more questions after that, but that's the core essence of what we do, and I'm not sure if Jeff has a different way of saying it, but that's how I say it.
Yeah, I may use different things. I'll say manufacturing companies accelerate their engineering to manufacturing handoff, or we those systems talking. We get engineering and manufacturing systems talking. And usually it's vague enough that people want to dig deeper. And when the teacher in me just kind of boils it down to say, we work with manufacturing companies that do design products like, give examples like machinery or heavy equipment. The engineer uses the tool that he designs the product, and then another tool called an ERP that allows them to manufacture it. And those things don't talk to each other. They're separate systems, but you need to take in data information from here and put it over there, transform it. And that's what I explain how we do. They begin to get that understanding. Now, some folks will have a knowledge of what an ERP system is, and they'll also understand what a CAD is, their design and drafting, and they'll get it right away. Other folks have no experience doing those. They don't know the alphabets, they don't know the acronyms, they don't know ERP, they don't know CAD, they don't know any of that world. So you had to do a bit more explaining. So the elevator pitch is good in terms of pithy and gets right to the point, but unless you're in the industry, you're like, I don't know what that means, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's something, this has been new for me coming from outside of an industry. This is actually a really good opportunity for me to practice that elevator pitch and be able to explain some of these. Scott, I think you were going to add something.
Yeah, the other way I do it is, especially in this world, because people understand certain tools and stuff. So there's a tool that it's very, very common that people use, especially in the marketing world, called Zapier, right? For connecting like different marketing packages together. So I always say that, imagine Zapier, but for very, very niche market. So we solve a very niche problem, but Zapier is probably a pretty good analogy to what we do. But it's obviously, it's more specific to that. Yeah.
That's actually really good to know, because I used Zapier as an example with someone a couple of weeks ago when we were in our trade show in San Antonio to explain exactly what we were doing. So that's good to know that I'm on the same page with you on that, because I had that exact same thought as well. So for those who, again, joining us, learning about us for the first time, this was a product born out of experience for you. Tell us a little bit about where this idea came from. It is so niche. Why did you even bother to think about something like this?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I'm an engineer, actually industrial engineer. Industrial manufacturing engineer is kind of the background I had, or that's the degree I have, is industrial engineering. And then the first company I went to work for, actually as an intern or co-op, which is out of the University of Cincinnati, was for a company who made packaging machinery. So they were designing 3,000 new part numbers every month. And they make the machines that put the bottles of Budweiser into the cartons and things like that. Lots of engineering change, lots of things like that. And what happened was, I thought it was interesting. And this is actually the co-op. I said, what you had to do is the engineers would print out these drawings of these are these parts. And then you have to look at the drawing and figure out how am I going to make this? And then look at that and then literally put all the information that's on the drawing, you basically retype it into this ERP system, but you'd also add some knowledge to it about this part needs to go to a router, or this part's going to get cut on a saw that's going to go to a horizontal, and this part's going to go on a laser. You have to know that as a manufacturing engineer. And then you'd also estimate times. And all of that data, run times, things like that, all that data comes together, what material it's made out of, in order to figure out like a cost and a routing, and a scheduling, all that's what the ERP system needs. And it seems crazy to me that we started out with a computer, designed all this stuff, and then printed it out on paper, and then handed it to another guy who then looked at it in paper and interpreted it and then typed it back into a computer. That made no sense to me. This is the late 90s at the time. So I think I started working there in like December 97. So the idea for CADtalk was actually, very, very long time ago. And I really did not enjoy that job. It was just not fun, and I think it's because I didn't understand manufacturing that well then. And then, so it's literally like, you get these drawings, you're like, I don't know how to make this thing. I don't know how to do this. So there was a lot of like ramp up and steep learning curve to figure out how this worked. And at the time, it was like, couldn't we automate a lot of this, or at least semi-automate a lot of that? That's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that we don't always completely automate. Sometimes we can only semi-automate, which is still better than nothing. And engineers tend to think in absolutes, like it's either all automated or not automated, and it's not true. There's a whole spectrum of how we do integration. And so just even semi-automating it, doing the part that we can figure out with software, and then still allowing the person to make decisions, is a huge part of what we do. That's probably the part that actually makes it different than Zapier, is that we have a little bit more of an interactive type of application to work with the engineer, who could then apply knowledge that we can't derive directly from the data. So, but that's where it came from. That's how the idea came from. So,
Jeff, you come to this with a teaching background. How has your appetite for learning kind of fit in with learning CADtalk, with being here at SaaS Academy, all of those kind of avenues for picking up more? Because if people meet you, you do have this appetite for learning that just kind of shines through.
Yeah, I was got a different career before this. I was a Latin teacher. I almost had a PhD when I left college, and I taught for 11 years with students. And I always enjoyed learning. I remember when I was in university, I didn't really want to leave that much. I just enjoyed learning so many different topics, interests that I had. And so when I came to CADtalk, it was something completely new. Not only did I not know CADtalk, I didn't know manufacturing. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know any of the alphabets. And so for me, it was exciting to learn, to get expertise in that, work with customers, to work with over 100 different projects to get that knowledge. And so I just really enjoyed learning and sharing that knowledge, kind of both. I kind of go to the teacher. I love learning something new and then sharing that, being kind of my expertise. And I just get a lot of, I feel like a lot of value and excitement when I can share that and break it down for people and explain it. Because I tend to have a lot of excitement. I mean, I was a Latin teacher, which is a niche in itself. So this was kind of like, oh, this is a niche thing as well. So it fit for me. So I like learning new things and then sharing them. And so that's one of the reasons I like SaaS Academy as well. Is like I like you're learning different parts of the business, sales, marketing, product. When you're running a company, there's lots of areas. Something that I typically like to do is really do something well. And now that we're running a company, the depth of that we need to go, it's not just what I like, right? So for marketing, it's the marketing intensive. I'm going to be here at the session, but it's going to be more of a high level of the kinds of things we can do. And then you're the guy who can go deep. So it's a little different for me because I don't get to dive deeply as I would normally do. But that's where we are now in this process.
We are going to keep this a relatively short episode because conference is going to get started here fairly soon. But I wanted to ask you guys, you've had now some time here with the boardroom. You're kind of now leading into this marketing intensive. Would love to hear from each of you. What was your biggest takeaway from the boardroom? What are you most looking forward to for the next 2 days for the marketing intensive?
For me, it may sound kind of weird, but I think validation that I'm much farther along and more knowledgeable than I thought. I always feel behind, like I'm not as knowledgeable. I think you see this a lot with experts. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. I guess you're familiar with that. So like, I'm going off with that. So like, you know how there's a Dunning-Kruger effect when you you first learning something, and then you have this feeling that some people have this feeling that know a lot, right? They just begin to go, oh my God, I know so much about this topic. And then as time goes by and you learn more and more and more, you realize like, oh man, I don't know as much. It's kind of a Socratic idea of all I know is I know nothing at all. So the more you learn, the less you feel like you learn, that you know, right? You feel really unprepared. And so having come from a teaching background and having learned manufacturing and learned CADtalk and done all that stuff, I still felt like there's so much I don't know, and you start to see like all the small nuances of things you need to learn about. Going to the boardroom and talking to other people and hearing these speakers, I realized, wow, I can go far more than I give myself credit for. Like I'm much farther along and know a lot, or as much in a lot of ways, some of the other founders, some of the other folks, even people who have really large businesses. So, okay. Conceptually, I know what they know and how to do that. It's just I'm in a different. Our company's in a different spot, so their company is way bigger. This is a different spot in the growth trajectory, but like all the same. I know a lot of the same stuff. It was good. It was validating. It felt like okay, I'm doing the right things, but also I'm in the right area. Like I'm not way behind. There's still plenty to learn to change that thirst for learning, but it is nice to get graded, if you will, right? To get feedback from the teacher to say, I was the teacher to say, yes, you're getting A's in the class, right? You are learning, you are making progress, you are ahead or in the head of other people. That's nice to feel because then for me, success breeds success. When you get that validation, you get that feedback, I'm on the right path. Otherwise, you don't know. You're just like in a wilderness. I think I'm doing all right, but I don't know. But when someone that you respect says, "Oh yeah, you're doing just fine," you're doing really well. You're like, "Oh, good." Then you just get that kind of fuels the fire to push harder, right? Because you're going in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really good, Scott.
Yeah, I think that you just got to get. I think I think there's your tribe makes your vibe, or the vibe makes the tribe type thing, or the average of the 5 people you spend time with, and just being around. If you keep you keep improving that average and seeing things, it just makes you like. I think the biggest thing, and you tend to improve right from that. And being here just is so, especially the boardroom and some of the other events as well, because this one's just getting started. It makes you the real big takeaway is that you need to think bigger and move faster. I want to run, I want to walk, which I thought was a great lesson I learned this week. Was like, we have, it's like I just had a birthday a couple weeks ago, and I'm thinking it's like, and I have, and the goals that I have are just keep getting bigger, and I just want to move. I think I want to move faster and think bigger, and I think that's and I think it's a lot more fun to do it that way too. So it's just a reminder of what's possible by being in a room like this and meeting people. And so it just like, I think that the timing of the events is really nice. It's just about when you're kind of getting your butt kicked and things are kind of going sideways, or you're just in the grind, you get to come to another one and get reinvigorated, which is really good. So the timing is really good for that. But yeah, let's just think bigger and just learn as much as you can, and try to and just keep the fight going. Do the best you can.
Scott Brickler, John Thomas here on the Integrate Intelligently podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify. You can also watch the video episodes on YouTube. There's some other guests from the podcast who are here. Pirolnik from Trust Shoring. He is here at the event. You can go listen to his podcast that we had him on. You can also go back. We've had some webinars with Paul Van Voris as well, who's a sales expert. He's here as well. Lots of other folks who may be future guests on the podcast coming up here as well. Jeff, Scott, thanks so much for taking some time to talk this morning on the Integrate Intelligently podcast. Anything else to add before we head off to grab some breakfast and get ready to go?
No, John, thanks for putting this together and packing up all the gear in its own suitcase, which is pretty impressive. So.
I figured I should leave my clothes upstairs so you guys didn't have to worry about seeing my dirty laundry on the floor here in the lobby this morning. So
awesome.
But again, thank you guys for joining. Thanks for listening to all of you who are tuning into the Integrate Intelligently podcast. Again, we're CADtalk Software. You can follow us on LinkedIn as well. That's where we're putting a lot of our content out, but you can also give us a follow on YouTube as well. Thanks for listening and watching. We will see you soon, probably with an episode that is not on the road. We've done a lot of road episodes here with trade shows and marketing events, but stay tuned for a lot more from the Integrate Intelligently podcast. We'll talk soon.